You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call. I've got Brad Hunt here to my left, and today's podcast is with Joe and Dennis from Initial Ascent Backpacks. I've been using the Initial Ascent backpack for 2.5, 3 years now. I put it through a lot of testing. I've gone back and forth between that bag and other bags, other packs, other frames. I've really tried to vet it, just put it through its paces. It's funny, I met Dennis and Joe, who are the owners, through Ryan Lampers. Dennis had attended one of Ryan's, I think Dennis and Joe may have, attended one of Ryan's Western Hunting Summits, and they got to know each other. And Dennis and Joe are just really nice, salt of the earth, good Christian fellas, and great families, great husbands, great fathers. And we got to know them as people, and we knew about the pack because our friend Dave Baronio, who is a badass outfitter, packer, friend of ours, he won the Train to Hunt multiple times. And just have tremendous respect for Dave. Dave had been using the pack, and he used it on a Train to Hunt event, and he won, and he had switched from a different pack we won't mention, but he was like, wow, this is amazing. So one thing led to another over the years. I mean, now that we've been using the pack, and I've gone through iterations of the pack, getting to a point now where, man, I can't deny how effective the pack is for basically just the efficiency of the bag when you're carrying heavy stuff. And the same is true for Ryan. He's experiencing the same thing. Ryan had an Initial Ascent before I did. Yeah. He's had one for years. One of his complaints was the bag design itself, some of the zipper locations, but over time, he's been pretty 1/2. The frame is, and the suspension system is just really good. So anyway, I sat down with Joe and Dennis and talked about the packs, what they're up to right now, their designs. Yep. We just kind of walked through the pack and discuss what makes it unique and also better. I mean, just better. And for the next 2 weeks between now and April 9th at midnight, if you buy an Initial Ascent pack, use the code GRITTY, you'll get a discount, but you'll also be entered to win a big prize package that we have running on for the next 2 weeks, a little promo that we have going on with Dennis and Joe and Initial Ascent packs, where you can win a Leupold spotter, a Leupold carbon fiber tripod, and you could get an all-in Digiscope adapter.
You got a Stealthy pad with rifle cover as well, and a medical kit that is included
Stealthy
in that.
medical kit, okay. $500 gift card to Go Hunt. Yep. Lifetime membership to Go Hunt. You'll be entered to win a pair of Graxaw game bags, also a goat knife, as well as Iron Mountain skull hanger. Did we forget anything, Brad? Lifetime membership.
Got that.
We got that.
Yep.
So pretty good prize package. Right now, I don't know how many people will be able to go in and actually buy a pack. You know, it's not exactly a budget item. Packs are an investment. I think it's well worth the investment. I can't recommend the pack enough. I think it is the best pack for what we do on the market right now. Use the code GRITTY. You'll save. It also helps us keep doing what we do.
Yep. Every $25 gives you one entry.
Yeah. You don't have to buy the whole pack. Nope. You could just spend $25 over there. They have some skull hangers over there, which are really nice, right in that price point. They have some water bottle holders and other things that you could use on your existing packs. You could go over there and you could support Initial Ascent, especially if you like Joe and Dennis after this podcast, without having to buy the main big pack. But if you do, every $25 you spend there will get you those multiple entries. And it'll be interesting because some giveaways, when it's a bigger ticket item, there's fewer participants. Yeah. And so the odds of you winning the package is a lot higher than when it's like a $5 entry fee and you're in. So it's a little bit higher, but hopefully you listen to this podcast and you want to give the pack a try. And we're hoping that's what you do. And you'll be entered to win for the next couple of weeks. So thank you for supporting us. We can't thank you enough. We couldn't be doing what we do if you weren't there helping us continue to pay the bills and grow our business. Yep. We really do appreciate that. You don't even know. I sometimes I have to pinch myself that I actually do this. I'm hoping that, we do our best to really bring you quality content, quality information that empowers you and inspires you. So hopefully we have been doing that, and that's why you're listening to this podcast right now. Thank you again. Thanks for tuning in, and stay gritty. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call. I have two guests with me today, Dennis Stokes and Joe Elliston from Initial Ascent Backpacks. And we are just wrapping up all the podcast episodes that we recorded at the Western Hunt Expo last month. And I was in your booth. I basically set up a podcast space over there, and I did the show and got to talk to a lot of great people. And as I'm in the booth, I'm watching all these people come into your booth and try on the packs and then leave. And it was just busy. And I had a number of people come up to me later in the show who said, hey, really loved that Initial Ascent pack. I got to try on a whole bunch of other packs at the show. And then I came back, and it turned out that, yeah, you're right. This carries really well. It carries heavy well. So I wanted to get together, do a little podcast, some people have heard you guys before or on an earlier podcast from a year or so ago. I wanted to have you guys on again and really kind of break down the pack a little bit. And, tell me a little bit about the design, how you came up with it, but also what was the experience at the trade show? Because I had a number of people come up to me and talk about their experience. And one thing that's great about the trade shows is if you go there, you're going to be able to try on. And actually, because I'll have people say, Brian, I would love to try that pack. I wish that I could go down to the local sports store and put it on and then put a load in it and really compare it from one brand to the next. But most of these high-end packs are not available at your typical store, right? Yep. Especially the ones built for hunters. You can go to REI and you can throw on something that is maybe maxed out, meant to carry 70 pounds. Yeah. But we're talking with hunters, you're talking a lot more gear because of the whole, the nature of the activity. Sure. Right. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that. How was your experience at the trade show?
Yeah. So I think for us at the trade show, back to your point, Brian, we've been going to the trade show since 2018. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we've always done from day one is, a pack that's empty feels great for a lot of folks. But the reality is that's just not real life experience. So we've always done weighted packs, mm-hmm. and we've really continued to kind of take it to a higher level to really simulate, what our pack system can do. So we make sure that anybody puts a pack on, it's not going to be empty. We're going to fit it because you need to fit the pack right. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to add weight, and we're going to do a minimum of 40 to 45 pounds. But then, here over the last couple of years, we've taken it to a next level and really started to leverage our platform, which spreads the weight across the back versus away from the back, and showed, okay, you can actually hang like a deer quarter or elk quarters from the side, which allows your center of gravity. So we've now started doing that within the booth. And the reason why I tell you that is, we encourage people to go and try on packs, right? Because that is the perfect forum for them to go, explore, try on the various packs, because we're pretty confident that we think they'll come back if they're going to be carrying heavy loads and really enjoy the feel that our pack system gives them.
Yeah.
Yep. So. And I think, to that point, if you're shopping for a pack, that's one of the, besides your weapon, that's one of the top two things that you have to get right. Boots, number one, pack, number two. And we encourage these customers, go try every pack on that you can. Mm-hmm. Make sure they put weight on it. If they won't put weight on it, just leave then. You don't need to spend any more time. Right.
Yeah. Right.
But at these trade shows, like Joe was saying, we're always putting 45, 50 pounds on there just to get the fit. Mm-hmm. But then something that these other brands really haven't done is put more weight on, because not only do you have to know what it feels like light, and when I say light, I mean, carrying your pack in with your gear, that sort of thing. You got to know what that feels like, but you need to know what it feels like when you've got that animal harvested and you've got those quarters on there and you're packing heavy weight out.
Yeah, right.
And so here in the last couple of years, we've been able to simulate that with guys, and because of the design of our system and those 2 notches that were developed for the rifle sling, with our good friend Dave Baronio coming up with that system of hanging the quarters. As a guide, he's got to be as efficient as he can, and he's hanging the quarters up there. And from a physics standpoint, it just works. It flat works because it keeps an intense or an insane amount of weight as close to your center of mass as you can get it.
Yeah.
There's no other pack that can do that. And any other pack, if you're going to put 140 to 150 pounds on, that's what we were doing the last 4 days at the show, you've got to go out and or up with it. And when you do that, it pulls you back naturally. And so naturally you have to compensate and lean forward. So you can walk with an insane amount of weight, 140, 150 pounds, straight up and down.
Yeah.
There are people out there, they don't know how I met you. I met both of you through Ryan Lampers. And Ryan introduced me to you guys and to your pack. And I just didn't want to use it. I had other packs that I liked. And I'm always willing to try something. But I'm the world's biggest skeptic. You know, when Bryce sent me some trekking poles from Peaks, I was like, I'm going to break these and send them back to you in a box and say, I did you a solid, but, sorry.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out that way. I got your pack. I put it on. I was so skeptical. And then I hiked up the mountain, climbed to the top, and got there. The thing that shocked me was 100 pounds felt like 80 pounds. It was like a 20% decrease in overall feel. It didn't feel like 100 pounds. And I was just the day before using, I don't know if you guys remember, but back then I was throwing in like a water cooler into my pack. And just from the office full of water, throw that water cooler in there and some weight, so it was awkward because I didn't want plates that were just right up against my back. That's not how our packs really fit.
Right.
You can give yourself a false, the way you load your pack with metal plates or sandbags can kind of throw off how awkward and difficult a real load is. When you got an animal, especially in a full week's worth of gear, because you're coming back heavy,
right?
It's an awkward load, and I want to see how packs feel when I do that. I threw the water cooler in there, and anyway, the thing that stood out was it just carried heavy better. It felt like my load was lighter. It just didn't feel as heavy, and I was feeling every pound on the other packs that I was using. The other pack I was primarily using, I felt it more.
Yeah.
So then it became a matter of, okay, let's run this in the field. Let's see, now that I've tested it at home, I worked for a few weeks hiking up and down the mountain on the Wasatch there every day, playing with different loads. Then it was a matter of, okay, I see how it carries. Now, how do I like the bag? How do I like the belt? How do I like the pockets? How do I like the other aspects of the bag? And that went on for a while, and then I took it on to some hunts and tested it further from there. And it's been a process of me using it and then going back to something else and then using it again and going back to something else and really trying to determine the differences and the pros and the cons of each one very methodically over time. And I've now moved to the point where I don't want to use anything else because it just carries better, just carries loads better. What was your feedback at the trade show from people when you loaded it up with 140 or 50 pounds? What do people say?
I mean,
first of all, I expect some smaller people to fall over, but they don't.
They don't. And even, we were loading up ladies this weekend with 140, 150 pounds. So, it's a lot of weight, right? I mean, regardless, 140 pounds is 140 pounds. But the look on their face, because we don't tell people how much weight it is. We do that intentionally, right? Kind of that wow factor that we know is coming. And so we wait, and then, you see them, you stand up, and the first thing you notice, and you tell them is, look, you've got 150 pounds or 140 pounds on your back, and you're literally standing straight up. Really, there's no other pack system that allows you to do that. And that's when the aha moment goes off with them.
They're like,
yeah, they can't believe it. I mean, we coming out of the expo, I think it was 2 years ago, when we had been, doing the same, emulating this, putting 140, 150 pounds on. The social media aspects, like, no way, it's a joke, it's a lie. They can't be doing that much weight. No, we really are. That's how much weight is being carried there. So it's exciting for us to see people's reaction when they're like, man, this is totally different. And then you hear from them, gosh, I was packing out 60, 70, 80 pounds, and this thing feels lighter, to your point, than when I was packing out my bull or my deer or whatever. So it's exciting to see that reaction from the folks. Once we actually tell them how much weight is on their back, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Had one guy get close to guessing.
Yeah.
And he was just trying to calculate it in his head. Yeah. He's like, well, you told me it was 45 on the back, and and so he still was like at 125 or something. Yeah. But one of the things that we'll do, even with just the 45 pounds on their back or 50, we'll hand it to them after they take it off their back. And they're like, whoa, I can't believe that I had this on my back. Yeah. It didn't feel like this. That's the main quote that we get. Yeah. It didn't feel like this.
And I think the other thing that's come to light, with our pull forward belt system, right? Because part of the frame, it's the whole suspension that really makes the difference. Because if you had real flimsy foam and you didn't have a pull forward system that you could cinch it down tight, that stayed tight, it wouldn't work and perform as well. One of the things that I think is really starting to come to light is if you look at our lumbar system, it's a 2-stage lumbar system that we designed back there. You've got a high density foam that actually we found within the furniture industry. We looked at all different types of foam to come up with what will really allow us to support these heavy loads. And furniture lasts forever. It gets used and abused, for decades. And so we ended up actually leveraging the foam out of that industry. But then we have a soft foam. And I think the combination of that with those heavy loads, plus with the wider belt design that we have, coupled with the pull forward, just gives that support. And you really see it when people cinch that thing down tight. They talk a lot about that lumbar. Because most people, let's face it, guys, once you get over 40, it feels like everybody has lumbar issues, right?
Right.
So this really does help. And I've heard time and time and time again from folks, I feel better with this on my back. Can you just watch them? It kind of straightens you up when you cinch that down. So to me, that was kind of a neat experience to continue to hear that from folks, as we're doing these shows.
Yeah. And for me with back problems, I've had lower back problems for 20 years. And for me to hear that same thing, that they feel better when they put it on. Sometimes when my back's bothering me, I'll go strap my back on and cinch it down tight, and it just gives me that security, and my back stops hurting.
Yeah.
And
when I first, or people who have been following our shows for a while and following the podcast where we talk about the backpacks, we do our gear dumps after hunts are over. I've been able to use the pack on elk hunts, on mule deer hunts in wilderness, on grizzly bear hunts in Alaska, on black bear hunts. I've taken it. I've probably used it. I've used it a ton. Before I really did, and even in the beginning, I promoted it a little bit because I really liked it, but then I backed off a little bit, being like, I just want to make sure that I don't lead anybody down the wrong road here. I want to be in love. I'm trying to give a fair, a balanced opinion on what I'm using. And it's funny. I remember in the beginning, I had some reservations. I was telling you about when I seated the belt around my waist, and I loved how it carried, but I felt like when I put the belt on, I had to search for the fit.
Right.
And then I'd hike in a little bit, and then I'd have to search for the fit. I take it off, I put it back on, and it'd take me a few minutes to get it to buckle right. And then it'd be like, oh yeah, that's the spot, Then I buckle it on again, and I just was searching. I'm like, what's going on? And Dennis came over. We did some looking. You did a little bit of tweaking on that lumbar pad, and then you brought me a belt that was bigger.
Yep.
Quite a bit bigger than what I was running.
Yeah, it went from a small to a medium belt.
I threw that belt on there and then started hiking, and the one reservation I had disappeared. And I was thinking, man, I've been using this for a year and like 2 months, for 14 months here. Dang it, I wish I had switched to this belt a while ago because it was like that. Then it just fit every time I wrapped it. And all of a sudden I went from, going, I love it, but you got to figure something out, guys, because I think it's not quite there, to realizing really it was just a poor fit in my belt size.
Yeah.
And once we got that, it's just been never looking back. It just fits like a dream. I buckle it on and I go. Mm-hmm. So without naming other backpacking brands, because they're all making great stuff, the experience I have with Initial Ascent in comparison is this. I load it all up. It's got, 80 pounds, 75 pounds. Let's say 75 pounds for a 10-day hunt or 12-day hunt. We hike in 10 or 12 miles to a spot. I get there with the Initial Ascent. I do that. No problem. Get there, do the hike. I go to bed that night and I'm tired. It's a long hike with a heavy load, but we did it. Mm-hmm. Go to sleep, wake up the next day, hunt, right? With the other brands that I've worn, same thing. And I know this because I tested them 2 weeks on this trip,
right.
2 weeks on this trip, alternating back and forth between bags. And I'm like, same hike, right? 12 miles in, same load, 75 pounds. Felt okay. It felt a little heavier than the Initial Ascent in terms of its strain on my shoulders, maybe cutting off a little circulation going to my hands. I don't know if it's just a clavicle, the way it sits. I have that problem with other bags, not with Initial Ascent. I get there and I'm tired, but my back is hot, real hot, and always on my right side.
Remember that. On
the right lumbar, the whole right side of my back. I don't know why it just gets burned up, because I believe the Initial Ascent is unique in comparison to any other bag that I've used, in the way that if the load isn't perfectly balanced, I can't tell. Meaning it distributes the weight on the left side or right side of the bag, seems evenly across your hip and shoulders. So even if I have a rifle on the far right-hand side of my bag, which is 6 or 7 pounds, and then on the left side I have a spotter, but it's 5 pounds.
Right.
In the other bags, I feel it. In some bags, I feel it a lot.
Yeah.
But on the Initial Ascent, I don't feel it at all. It doesn't matter if it's not perfectly balanced. So I think that's part of it, because I carry the rifle on the right-hand side, and it seems that my right-hand side seems to get burned out. It also tells me that the load with the Initial Ascent bag or frame, with that carbon fiber or triaxle, shape that it is, and the way it connects to the hips and the hip belt and the shoulders and all of that, the weight of the load is on that frame. It's on that carbon fiber board. I didn't say board. It's like a
the foundation.
The foundation. The frame basically holds that load.
It does,
and it doesn't seem to put the pressure on my spine and the muscles in my back the way that the other bags do. So I get done with when I'm wearing the other bags, I get to that end of the day and I go to climb into bed, and I'm squirming in the tent for the first 3 hours because my back is on fire, and I'm laying on my stomach and I'm stretching, and it just feels like I did 50,000 deadlifts or something. Like it just feels like the back is burnt.
Yeah.
And the next day I wake up and I can't touch my toes. I'm a little bit stiff. And when I started to notice like a drastic difference in the fatigue levels in the muscles in my back from one bag to the next, I was just like, I got to quit. I got to I got to just stick to initial ascent moving forward. It just is better for my body. It's better on my back. It's better for the load. Now, I've had some people say, and I noticed this when I first got it, it's a little stiff compared to other bags. And when I was squirming through tight brush or getting on my knees and crawling or had to like maneuver across a log or something, I noticed the stiffness because I couldn't arch my back, in the same way I can with some of the other bags that are out there. But that was quickly overcome when I started to learn how to adjust it on the move, loosen it up a little bit based on the weight of the load and the terrain I'm embarking on. Knowing that I have 90% of the time the support I want and need for when I need it, and then I can just adapt for the moment. Yeah. And it's funny because I had this conversation with Lampers because he used it just on a couple other hunts we've been on recently. And he told me, he's like, yeah, I don't really notice the stiffness. I put it on. I'm like, it's cool. I'm like, you must be skinnier without as much broad muscle, without as much, girth. You must be able, you just must, I don't know. Anyway, I was like, well, I noticed. I don't notice now, but I did early on. But it probably is because learning how to fit it better. When I can recall coming off of a mountain like this, and Livesey and I have full bears in the backpacks and the gear and the clothing, all that kind of stuff. And I'm coming down and I got to climb over a log and I got to bend and do all this kind of stuff. And that pack is not arching at all.
Right.
And I a couple times I felt like it almost made me fall over because I was used to something that flexed so much more. I wasn't ready for like the lack of movement when I needed it. And so it's probably somewhat just
training
subconscious now. Now I just know the movement patterns that I need to undergo with the pack on.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it boils down to this. It just doesn't cause the fatigue and it just carries better. My back, my low back, my spine, my shoulders. I don't have all that sort of built up pain. So another thing that has got me, and I'll throw this your way, I look around and I see that there's a lot of guys out there wearing other packs. Mm-hmm. Initial Ascent isn't that saturated into the market.
We're a pretty new company still in the grand scheme of things.
And I look around and I'm like, I see all these other bags, and I see a lot of outfitters using different bags. I see a lot of guides. I see a lot of other hunters that I respect using a different bag, different backpack. And I'm like, well, obviously they must know something I don't know. That's kind of what I thought in the beginning, And so I sort of dismissed Initial Ascent because, if it had what it had going on, then everybody would be using it. I've come to realize now that that's completely false, that a lot of these guys, what it's done for me is realize they actually don't know what they're doing. Like a lot of them, they know what they know, and they haven't tried anything else, so they don't really know that there's a better mousetrap. Yeah, they don't. And so it's been cool because I've been able to for myself through, 2.5 years now?
Yeah, it's about right.
Of solid use, really get to where I'm in love with the bag and what it can do. And it's a fun story to tell because tons of folks are coming along and discovering it for the first time and realizing, oh, wait a minute, there's this is a different animal.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I was going to say, back to when you talked about just the weight distribution, it's funny because at the shows, one of the things that we do, we didn't originally do this, but we've been doing it the last year or so, is we'll actually, once we take the weight off, we'll take one weight off at one time intentionally. So you have 50 more pounds hanging on one side, and you watch those people, they might go like that. I mean, they hardly move at all, just a little bit, right?
We're talking 50 pounds.
50 pounds.
And I'll say to them, guys, if your rifle weighs 10 pounds, do you think you'll actually feel that hanging there? And it's just like, no, I won't. Absolutely not. And but it goes back to your point, the way that is designed it spreads it across, and you just don't get out of balance. It makes a big difference.
It's huge. It's huge because the other bags I would take off and I'd have to adjust the load and repack and rejigger it all and then put it back on.
Yep.
And there were more than one occasion where I'm like, oh, it's so unbalanced.
Yeah.
And I did my best to get it there. And you really notice it a half hour down the trail.
Right.
And one side's going way over, and you're tightening a strap on one end to overcompensate and loosening, to try to cockeye it the other way. And then you're hiking when I get here, 3 miles, then we'll stop at this spot where we're going to stop anyway because I got it on, and then you regret it 3 miles later. I should have just stopped way back there and just rejiggered the whole thing and got it back in place. But it's frustrating, and I've noticed with some of them, they're so picky. Like if it's not just right, you're feeling that lean the whole time, and it's frustrating. So that's been something special that that I love about the whole thing.
Good.
So one of the other things that is pretty special that I think I've always been the guy that says load shelves are dumb. Just throw it in like a contractor bag and put it in the main compartment. Like this whole thing with strapping it on the outside, big reason for that is because removing a bag from a frame is such a process for almost every other bag out there, every other backpack out there. Your system is brilliant. The bag comes off with just comes off. It's intuitive.
Fast.
It's simple. Comes off. And now I have a load shelf right on that carbon fiber frame, and you have all the straps and the buckles and the bag, all the stuff I need to hold that meat exactly where I want it, and sometimes a big meat, and then I can go ahead and strap the bag right back on, and it fits nice. That's a whole different thing that at first I dismissed, and even for the first year, I toyed around with it. I was kind of like on and off, and now I'm pretty much all in on it. I mean, certain situations, it's better to put the meat in the bag, like expedition style. I'm coming out, I got the whole deer in there and my pack. It actually gets easier still to load your pack just right. But often that's not the situation. We're going back to base camp first, being able to just pull the bag forward, drop the meat on there, strap it on tight. The quarters, everything's like boom, right on the back, exactly where you need it. You notice how some manufacturers inside the bag, they have straps to try to hold the load in place where they need it to stay. Well, you guys go right to the frame.
Yep.
And then I can just attach the bag quickly, and boom, I'm on the road again. And so that's a really neat design. Plus, what I've really liked about that is on day style hunts, like with my dad hunting elk and so on, we used it a lot in that earlier season because I could ditch the main bag.
Yeah.
I don't even have to unload it. I can leave my whole 10-day camp is in there.
Yeah.
I can just quickly detach it, leave it completely loaded and packed, and take off with my base day mode pack. The top lid is brilliant. It's big and fits nice. It's got a zipper across you can access the whole thing, and I like the way that it attaches. So I throw a puffy in there a little bit for the day, some food, water. I got my top lid with everything in it, and I can bolt, go hunt, and then I can come back 4 hours later and just put that expedition bag right back on. I didn't have to dump everything out. Didn't have to do any of that. It goes right back on so seamlessly, and then I'm hunting again. It's pretty cool. That I gotta hand it to you. You guys pulled it off. It took me. I'm hard headed. It took me even a year probably to accept
when's
it.
he gonna try the dang meat shelf?
So yeah.
And that's one of the things that I got this weekend from customers. I would explain that whole meat shelf, that day pack system to them, and how you could run your 4K or 6K bag over the top of the pannier. And my biggest thing is my pannier never, and that's the meat shelf, my pannier never comes off my frame. It's always there. It's just too handy. And so I would tell them exactly that, how they could they could take that bag off with their camp, leave it there, and then go hunt. And I had a couple guys say, it was like a light bulb went off. They said, so you're telling me that I'm getting a 2-for-1 here?
Yeah.
Absolutely, you are.
Yeah.
It's
it is like a little day pack.
It is.
I mean, that's all
exactly
it is.
right.
I strap my bow on there because it's the frame and it's got all the attachments needed, and it's got a little pouch there for everything else. So, no, it works very well. So you guys have a few different models. I've only used basically the 6K and some prototypes, because as I've been messing around with it, I'm like, hey guys, what if you do this? What if you do that? What if you change this? What if you update that? And you guys have been indulging me for a couple of years now. And that's been really cool, because it's nice to have a company that listens to your feedback and is like, okay, these guys use it a lot.
Right.
We respect that input. Let us see if we can come up with solutions that work. So, but on this recent hunt, we were hunting Coues deer and in Mexico, and we were out for the day, morning till dark. You didn't need a big expedition bag, which I'd say 9 out of 10 of our hunts you do.
You do.
That's how we do it. But there's the hunts like this that, frankly, actually mirror most guys' hunts. Most guys aren't doing the backcountry expedition hunts that we do.
Right.
And so what's cool, though, is Brad comes along. And what one were you using, Brad? The 4K in Mexico?
2K.
2K. Using the 2K in Mexico. I think he actually said the 4K he thought was probably what he really should have had on that trip.
Yeah.
He would have preferred, only because he and I carry so much camera gear.
Right.
And so tripods, cameras, and all that kind of stuff, along with your day stuff. The 4K would have been the cat's meow, I think. But I still got to get my hands on the 2K, and he used it a lot. And the whole week I was really jealous of his 2K bag, because I had a big 6K and it just seemed a little bit much for what we were doing. The cool thing about it, though, is all the bags fit on the same frame.
Yeah, modular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a game changer. Right?
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I mean, when we started down this road, that was one of the things that we knew we wanted, right? Because it's an investment. We realize that. These packs, these are not inexpensive packs.
Yep.
There's a lot that goes into them. But if we could make it cost affordable so that you can tailor that pack to the hunt that you're going on, i.e. a Coues deer hunt versus going up on an expedition, right? Or if you're going on a 3 to 5 day hunt, you've got the 4K. So we wanted to make sure that it was all modular. And it is. It's literally, you unclip a couple buckles, put your new bag on.
Back to what I said earlier, the removal of your bag is the best I've seen on the market by a landslide. Comes right off, comes right on. So the 4K or the 2K goes right on. One thing I don't like my frame getting messed with. Okay, I got the shoulders where I want them. I got the buck, the belt. I got my hip pockets here. I got my water bottle. I got my stuff. I got the pockets filled the way I want them filled.
Yeah,
I have a system, Joe. I have a system. And then here we come, and it's like, oh, I'm not going to use a 6K this weekend. I'm going to use a 4K. Well, I usually go, forget it. I'm just going to take the 6K because I don't want to change. I don't want to swap frames.
Right.
I don't want a different bag.
Right.
Well, with the initial Ascent, it's sweet because my top, everything stays the same except the bag itself. It just modularly pops off, pop on the other one, and I don't have to worry about if I've got my Peak design clip still on there. I don't have to transfer it between packs. I don't have to adjust my buckles, straps, the height. I don't have to deal with the frame issues.
Which is the big things that you end up changing, right?
You will always forget something in one of those damn pockets, or forget your clip, and then you're carrying a camera on a rope the whole time that you jimmy rigged, and you're just like, this is so annoying. So yeah, I like that setup. It's nice. But I want to talk to you about those bags. So I have spoken to the audience a little bit. We covered the 6K, I think, on an earlier podcast, but I don't think we talked about the 4K and the 2K.
Yep.
What do they look like, and how did you come up with those designs? What's the feedback been on those?
Yeah, go ahead, bud.
I was just going to say the 4K is that's our original design, actually. And so it's about 4,600 cubic inches with the lid. So the bag itself is about 4,000 cubic inches. And that's the one we started with. When we first came on the market, that's all we had.
That's all we had.
Yeah. And so we figured for the average guy, that would be perfect until we, discovered, going out for a week and 10 days. That wasn't in our vocabulary because
back then it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so that was kind of where we started, but you could also compress it down and do that and make it real streamlined. Then, and so we had that in the day pack.
Yeah, that was it at the beginning.
And then a lot of guys would say, well, gosh, I need a bigger bag, or I need something between the day pack and the 4K. I need something maybe a little bigger than the day pack and something with a little bit more organization.
Right.
Yeah. So
and I think if you look at like the 4 and the 6 on a platform basis, they're identical, and we did that intentionally, right? So the only thing that's different is the size. The pocket configurations are exactly the same, right? You got your 2 stretches on the side. You got your dedicated spotter. You got your dedicated tripod.
Yeah.
So those are exactly the same. When you go to the 2K, that's where the configuration changes. It's it's a different setup. And part of that was we really wanted to test a U-shaped zipper, right? And that's what we ended up going with on the 2K. We have it's a little bit more streamlined. It rides a little bit higher, and the shape's just a little bit different. I absolutely love the shape of it. It's perfect for a couple days. I mean, as Brad found out on his hunt, it's great for that. But it's a little bit less. So if you're going for more than say 2 or 3 days, then you definitely want to move up to the 4K. But for those guys that are either doing a 1 day, 2 day in and out, or they just want to go with a little bit more, you got your kid, right? You got their pup, you got their jackets, their snacks, all those things. Even for a day hunt, that works out really, really well. And you can attach the lid to it.
Yeah.
Right? That was an afterthought, but you can. We came back with a design so you could actually attach the lid, gives you another 500 cubic inches roughly, right? So now you're tapping almost 3,000 cubic inches. So you got some flexibility there.
The lid is definitely one of my favorite parts of the bag.
Yeah.
Having used a bag with a much different design for the lid, I was always cussing the lids. On all the bags I've used, pretty much, I've always had a lot of criticisms for the lids. Yours is just, it's not complicated.
It's pretty simple.
Why are the other ones so complicated?
I know. Well, our first lid, actually, we had the zipper on the backside.
Okay.
Right? And then we quickly found out everything falls out. Everything falls out.
It falls out unless you lay it on the front of the bag, and then it doesn't fall out.
Yeah.
But
then you're searching, you're digging.
That's what I mean.
Deep.
I think that too many bag manufacturers are trying to solve too many problems.
They are.
In the end, you would have been better off just with what you've got, which is just rectangle, large, zipper that spans the entire length. It's not so deep, but it's huge. And so I can open it and then grab anything I want.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's clean, simple. And then it works really well for securing the load in the bag.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
The way that it attaches to the frame and straps down, you got the poles in the front, and boom, you can really cinch down your load using the lid, which is the other purpose of having a lid.
Yeah, the free floating. You can float it up and down. Yeah, absolutely.
And so, that one I have heard numerous people's joy of, that lid, including, the guys in our group that are like, the lid's money. Well, the lid is a winner.
And when you started, I mean, you came up with the idea, well, I'm just going to take this whole thing off and it's going to go into my tent every night, right?
Yeah, and that's how I do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we went back and we said, well, we don't need these bar tech. Let's clip them. You gave us that feedback, so we don't do that anymore. So it's even that much faster.
Yeah, I unbuckle it. Zip, it comes off. Everything I need. My spoon, my matches, like everything I need at night when I get inside the teepee is in there. Everything I need if I were to get separated from my bag is in there. So Joe or Dennis, you went and built some straps for me so I can sling that sucker over my back like a little backpack as well. So quickly I could cross that, put it on my back, which I use for archery elk season, because how many times have I got my moccasins on and I am bolting after a deer or an elk with my bow in hand? It's stupid, though, for you to leave some essentials behind. And how often does it happen? You can only carry so much in your bino harness, right? Yeah. And being able to quickly detach the top lid and throw it on my back like a backpack and then go. Some guys will put it around their waist.
Yeah.
It's very nice to do that. You can sling it across crossbody, like just buckle and go. And to me, that's really critical for the bow hunter to be super flexible. And too many bags don't allow for that top lid detachment and use. The ones that do, the top lid isn't as nice as this. I've used them on a lot of hunts. Yeah. Good luck fitting a water bottle into some of them. Like, right. I'm just like, dude, I just need to throw this water bottle in there.
Yeah.
Because it's 100 degrees out here, and I got a big bull screaming right there, but I'm going to be on a 7-hour stalk maybe, so I need some water. And where am I going to put it? You know, I'm going in light and quick and fast, and so your lid is just the right size. It's not too big, not too small. It's got the access. I can throw a water bottle in there like this. I typically tend to keep those water bottles pretty. When I go to drink them, it's like I'm drinking quite a bit at once because I don't want the sloshing.
Yeah. Yep.
You know? Yep. But I've also learned, like, you move so slow when you get close that
not going to hear that.
You're not going to hear it. Yeah.
Well, and you might be sitting there for 4 or 5 hours. Yeah. Another cool thing about that lid is, especially for you bladder guys, got that hidden bladder pocket underneath the main pocket of the lid. Yep. So you can actually run it like you're talking about.
That's what I did this year.
Like a little backpack, and then have the bladder right there, and then you've got your tube. And
you gave me that platypus to stick in there, and I used that with my dad on that late season or early season elk hunt, and it was great. I don't like hoses, but it doesn't slosh.
Right.
You know, my Nalgene's over there like making noise.
Yeah. Right.
And the bladder it collapses as you drink it. It's got its pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I did try that out a bunch of times, and I could go either way.
Yeah. It's nice in the fact that, you know, I'm kind of in between on bladders myself. There's times where I like them, times I don't. But what I do like when I do use the bladder and it's in the lid, one, I don't have to pull it out. I can just pump water straight into it, or get clean water into it. And I'm not pulling everything out of my bag to get access if I got to fill it. Yeah. It's just in the lid, and it's not going to pop.
I started doing that because I was in the desert. Like, I've been on some elk hunts. So I ended up just leaving about a liter in the bladder. And when I did have to just ditch and go, I didn't have to worry about my Nalgene or my MSI or my Microlite GSI bottle or anything like that. I could just truly grab and go, which was the whole point of the top lid being designed that way.
Yep. Yep. And do you take and do a little quick disconnect?
Connect. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That works really well. You could filter right into it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty slick.
I really like that. So, quickly, walk me through, and the audience, through the frame, because it is different than anything else on the market, and it's not just a little different, it's like vastly different. There's nothing similar to it. You guys truly did invent something. At least I don't know of anything that's similar. Am I wrong?
Not that, I mean, there's other carbon fiber frames out there, right? But, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah, but they're not a solid state piece like this. They're like stays in a bag, right?
Yeah. And I think, you know, when we launched our frame in 2018, had we tried to do it 2 years prior, the resin that we used didn't exist here in the States, right? I mean, that's how advanced it was once we actually launched it. So the technology that's gone in is amazing.
And what's so strange is that you went that route instead of your typical aluminum frame, which is what everyone's done since the dawn of time. Like they tried to do some kind of frame like that, or following the traditional style of a frame.
Right.
I don't even want to call this a frame in a way. Like,
Yeah. I mean,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I keep thinking Dana Designs,
Right.
or some kind of old Kelty that I had in 1989 or something that was just aluminum that I took to Boy Scout camp.
Right.
You know, that's what I think when I think external frame.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And internal, I'm thinking of a bag with stays slid inside some slots. And look, it had its day, but it's just not enough support for what we do, for the loads we want to carry. It is just, at least if I compare it to what you have available there, they're not in the same league.
Yeah. And I think for us, Brian, when we started down it, we didn't know for sure what we wanted. All we did know for sure, though, was that we wanted to carry heavy loads more comfortably. So we ended up working with 3 different engineering firms. Took us 3.5 years. And 14 generations of prototypes before we actually came out with that. And that was, there was a huge learning curve. Carbon fiber, where we start is we say it's like baking a cake without a recipe.
Yeah.
And back then there was no recipe, no oven, no nothing. We were starting from scratch, literally. And for Dennis and I, we looked at every materials. We looked at aluminum, we looked at titanium, we looked at fiberglass. I remember one engineering firm, they threw wood up on there on the. We had a whiteboard, they had wood, and we're like, no wood. Remember that?
I do.
Yeah,
I love it.
So we literally went through everything. There was no limitations, but we came back to the carbon fiber. And, then once we actually started going through the process of, okay, let's build this thing, prototype after prototype after prototype, then it was like the materials, because there's different types of carbon fiber. There's pre-preg, there's resin. There's all different things that you can do. And it's not just a carbon fiber frame. There's different materials that we put in there to give it flex, where we wanted it to, or to reinforce the fibers a certain way. So, that just took years and years and years of testing over and over, failure, success, failure, success, before we finally got to the point with like, you know what, I think we got there. And since then, we're on generation 18 now?
Yeah, I think so. And not all those generations are big, major,
right?
Little tweaks,
moves, just little tweaks here and there. We spent 4 tweaks on just the rifle, the slot up there for the rifle sling. Now the meat hooks.
Yeah,
right.
When I first met you guys, and we had some talks, and we did a podcast early on, you explained to me, and for people who want to get the real deep dive history, you can go back and listen to that podcast we did in the past. Just Google Initial Ascent Gritty on YouTube. In the search bar, you'll probably find the podcast. But, Dennis, it was your back that was really one of the main drivers for figuring out something better, because weren't you having problems with your back? And that was like one of the issues that you were thinking, there's got to be a better design.
Personally, that was a personal thing for me, that I could not find anything that would work that would give me some relief when I'm packing heavy loads.
Yeah.
And Joe and I we lots and lots of conversations, and I remember laying out, we laid out cardboard with rope, trying to get a frame shape.
And the drawings, it was just.
I ran across some of those the other day. It was laughable.
We got one that looks like a wine bottle.
Really?
Oh yeah. But thinking about what our frame does, and just it's wide. It's, and it's, we keep it within the shoulders. But if you think about the energy that the loads bouncing up and down, shifting from side to side, if you think about spreading that energy across this whole frame, and then you think about spreading energy across a stay, you've got a lot of energy in a small space.
Totally.
Where you've got a lot of energy in a large space with ours. And the way it's connected with the suspension.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of energy that's spread out, so a lot of surface area there. And I think that's one reason that it works so well.
I can think back to years ago. I mean, a long time ago, all the different packs were on the market, and one of my best friends growing up, Anthony Spencer, we went to high school together, church together, grew up together, hunted a lot. When I started doing Gritty, I was filming our hunts and writing stories about him long before I ever started with Gritty. And so we were together we're still dear friends. And he had a Dana Designs backpack with an external frame that he would bring on every hunt. And it was, and his, we've all, I think the older you get to, we've all had our back issues. Backs are fragile, and it's kind of part of being
they take a beating.
Human,
Yep.
And I think the modern day and age is worse on our backs than, all the the stagnant movements, the atrophy and the stabilizing muscles and abs and all that kind of stuff. But regardless, back issues are a thing. And he would bring that Dana Designs pack, and sometimes he would leave it in the truck for when we had the actual pack out, hunting Mount Emily for some bulls, and it would kind of sit there and wait, while he carried something else, because you're out hunting, and then he'd pack one load out with the pack he had, which might have been like a Kuyu or something back then, or even a Kelty or something.
Right.
And then he'd go back in with the Dana Designs, right?
Carry the heavy load.
And it would, and there were times where we expedition hiked into a spot like a Eagle Caps mountain range or something like that, or Hell's Canyon, where he'd bring it. And the downside, though, the thing was heavy. Yeah. We'd pick it up empty, and we're like, dude, this is a brute.
Right.
But he understood at the time, and still to this day, that weight was well worth it when it carried the load so well. Right? It saved his back and his body. And we were all willing to carry an external load frame if we were packing 100 or 110 pounds or 150 pounds. We were like, oh yeah, get the pack board, that kind of thing. Now, imagine being able to do that, have that load, that stability of the load and that kind of frame, but now it's actually at a weight that is very, very usable on a day-to-day. Yeah. I feel like a lot of the internal frame bags, you had your Dana design, you had your external load pack that no one argued that it didn't carry better, right? But that sucker was 10 or 12 pounds empty. And the idea of carrying that around when you had 40 pounds of gear all day long just didn't make sense. So those internal frame bags kind of bridged the gap, right? They allowed you to go, okay, I can have a